Josef Lewkowicz's story begins in the quiet shtetl of southeast Poland. Born in 1926, it was a world defined by tight-knit community and tradition, until it wasn't. You see, all of this came crashing down in September of 1939 when Nazi Germany began its devastating campaign of occupation. For Josef, those early teenage years, at just 13, marked the end of innocence. By 16, his family was torn apart forever. He would never see his mother and siblings again. And his father, a steady force in his life, was lost to the merciless machinery at Auschwitz. Josef didn't just endure the unimaginable, he survived 6 different concentration camps. 6. Among them were the infamous Krakow-Płaszów and Auschwitz, where survival seemed more like a cruel joke. I mean, just think about it, being reduced to nothing, stripped of autonomy and treated as less than human. How do you even begin to put that into words? But let's not overlook the profound psychological scars left behind. He was the last one standing in his family, a sole survivor, carrying an unimaginable weight. For decades, Josef avoided revisiting these memories. He even had his Auschwitz tattoo removed, an act of erasure that must have felt necessary at the time, but later haunted him. I think that decision encapsulates something fundamental about trauma, how we try to control it, to suppress it, because confronting it can almost feel like living through it all over again. You know, this reminds me of a story from my own family during the Second World War. My grandfather's younger brother disappeared while fleeing occupied France. He was barely an adult, really just a kid, and his story came down to us like a ghost. Present, but incomplete. It's strange, isn't it? How these personal losses echo across generations. They become more than history lessons. They're like puzzle pieces we carry with us, shaping how we see resilience, identity, even ourselves. Josef managed to survive what so many could not. But survival doesn't mean simplicity. Being a witness to both human cruelty and human endurance is, in itself, a weight few of us could understand. And the fact that he later began sharing those memories, it's not just bravery, it's a form of generosity towards history and towards all of us. And these are just his formative years. There's still so much more to uncover about the man who carried this history and how he fought so relentlessly for justice. After the war, Josef Lewkowicz didn't just fade into the background like so many might have. No, he took on one of the most defining roles of his life as a seeker of justice. And when I say justice, I mean the hard, gritty kind. Not just abstract ideals, but confronting living, breathing reminders of cruelty. One of those confrontations? It was against Amon Göth. Yes, you've probably heard the name. The infamous commandant from Krakow-Płaszów, known for his brutal reign of terror. Josef was the one who identified Göth, even as he tried to slip away, hiding among German POWs. That identification? It led to Göth's arrest, trial, and ultimate execution. Can you imagine locking eyes with the person who represented so much of the suffering you lived through? And then being the reason he didn't escape accountability? It's staggering, really. But Göth wasn't the only one. Josef went on to uncover and identify 6 high-ranking Nazi leaders hiding among prisoners. 6. Each trial, each verdict. It wasn't just justice on paper. It was like shining a light into some of history's darkest corners. These trials became part of that global reckoning, a statement to the world that these horrors wouldn't be forgotten, that they couldn't just fade into the past unchecked. Still, I can't help but think about the emotional toll this must have taken. I mean, pursuing justice? It's not the same as finding peace. It's relentless, and it requires you to revisit those memories and experiences over and over again. How do you balance that? How does a survivor like Josef find the strength to shoulder not just his own pain, but the weight of ensuring accountability for so many others? It's not just bravery, it's a kind of moral reckoning on a personal level too. And, justice itself, after something as immense as genocide, becomes such a complicated, almost paradoxical thing. Like, what does justice even mean in the face of millions of lives lost? Is it about punishment? Is it about memory? Or is it about showing the world that these atrocities don't just disappear into silence? Maybe it's all of that. But here's the thing, Josef's pursuit wasn't just about holding perpetrators accountable. It was also about giving a voice to those who no longer had one. And as difficult, as grueling as that must have been, it's why his story resonates so deeply. Not just as a Holocaust survivor, but as someone who refused to let the pages of history close before justice was served. And what's incredible is that Josef's efforts didn't stop there. What he does next, well, it's nothing short of extraordinary. Josef Lewkowicz's story didn't end with survival, or even the pursuit of justice. It grew into something bigger, something enduring. After the war, while many were still navigating their own losses, Josef directed his focus on an extraordinary mission: rescuing Jewish children. More than 600 children hidden in monasteries, orphanages, scattered across post-war Poland, were given new lives because of his efforts. Just imagine what that must have meant to a child, being uprooted, unsure what would come next, and then being reunited with a community, a sense of belonging. These weren't just rescues. They were acts of rebuilding hope where devastation had taken hold. Honestly, it's humbling, isn't it? And even as he carried the deep scars of his experiences, Josef found ways to ensure that what happened would never become distant or diminished in the flow of time. He went on to write his memoir, The Survivor, and later shared his story in the moving documentary, The Survivor's Revenge. These were more than personal accounts. They were educational cornerstones, tools to teach, to remind, and most of all to challenge us. And, he wasn't just speaking to history buffs. Josef's words were for everyone, especially younger generations. He partnered with the J-Roots organization, helping to organize trips to Poland, revisiting those haunting sites of the Holocaust to keep the memory alive. Through this, his legacy became intertwined with education, with reminding us why we can't, why we shouldn't ever forget. Josef passed in 2024 at the age of 98, and even in his absence, his life leaves us with questions just as much as it does answers. Questions about what memory demands from us, about how we carry forward lessons of resilience, not just in times of war, but in the quiet moments of peace. What stands out to me most about Josef Lewkowicz's life is how deeply he emphasized that remembering the past is not about reliving pain. It's about safeguarding humanity, about ensuring these stories shape our values and our future. And really, when we reflect on lives like Josef's, aren't we also challenged to examine our own actions? How do we honor resilience in our daily lives? How do we ensure that the voices of survivors don't fade, that they echo through generations? It's not just about history. It's about choosing to tell the hard truths. Programs like The Lost Suitcase exist because people like Josef Lewkowicz showed us how necessary it is to keep these legacies alive, no matter the effort. His fight for justice, for memory, that's a blueprint, honestly, for all of us, in whatever corner of the world or history we occupy. And so, Josef's story, it isn't just his, it's tied to all of ours. A reminder that survival, justice, and remembrance are not separate threads. They're a single resonant call to action. And on that note, we've reached the end of today's journey. Thanks for being here with me to reflect on this remarkable life. I hope it leaves you as inspired, as reflective as it's left me. Take care, and until next time.